Monday night was a great win for the Orioles, and they followed it up on Tuesday with one of the worst losses you will ever see. I'm going to try to make sense of what in the world is happening. Coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast.
You are Locked On Orioles, your daily Baltimore Orioles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Orioles fans. Today is Wednesday, April 30th, 2025, and welcome back into the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Connor Newcomb. And coming up on today's episode, we are going to recap the first two games this series between the Orioles and the Yankees, dive into how good Tomoyuki Sugano was on Monday night and how much of a disaster Kyle Gibson's first start was on Tuesday. Then I'll dive a little further into this rotation. It is in dire straits here as we get to the end of April. I mean, what in the world can the Orioles even do next to fix it? And finally, I'll run through all of the roster moves I missed while I was gone. But that's all coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast, which is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at Monarch Money for 50% off your first year. And 50% off their first year is something the Orioles probably feel like they should be getting for Charlie Morton and for Kyle Gibson right now, because I am letting you know I've started this recording here on Tuesday night at 8:20 p.m. Eastern time. It is currently the sixth inning between the Yankees and the Orioles. I believe this is the earliest I have ever started recording a podcast in which I was going to talk about the game that was happening. The sixth inning. That's how much it's in the bag right now. It is 12-0 Yankees headed to the bottom of the sixth, and Carlos Rodon is perfect through five. And I figured I don't really need to see any more than to jump on here and talk about what's going on. But we are going to start with the positivity because I've been out for a few days. I enjoyed a great weekend with my wife and dog in West Virginia this weekend. It was wonderful. I barely paid attention to the Orioles as they got swept by the Tigers. So the good part is we're not even going to talk about that Tigers series. We're going to pretend like it didn't even happen, and we're going to move on to the Yankees. My first episode back here on Wednesday. Hope you, despite the bad baseball, enjoyed Luke's postcast while I was gone. Back here on a Wednesday to kind of recap some of the things that I have missed. And hey, I got back. I knew the Orioles had been swept. I was like, wow, they're playing terrible baseball. And then they win on Monday night. So let's start there because there hasn't been a lot of Orioles wins. And I want to recap them all, especially one that came over the Yankees where the Orioles looked pretty good doing it. So let's start with the 5 things you need to know from the Orioles 4-3 win over the New York Yankees on Monday night to open this series. And the first thing you need to know is Tomoyuki Sugano was good again, but in a different way this time. Sugano, coming into Monday, had made 5 starts at the big league level with the Orioles. He had a total of 9 strikeouts in those 5 starts. That is not a lot of something you see from big league starting pitchers these days. Averaging less than 2 Ks per start. His season high was 4 strikeouts in a single start coming into Monday. Coming into Monday, he had the lowest strikeout rate, 8% of all qualified starting pitchers in Major League Baseball this year. And with the start he made, he leapt up to almost 13%. Still the 4th lowest, but not the lowest anymore. He also had the 3rd highest contact rate against him in baseball coming into Monday. 85.1% contact rate among qualified starters in the majors. That is not a lot of swing and miss. Now he's only 13th highest. Unfortunately, Dean Kramer still sadly has the 2nd highest contact rate because he's not missing bats, but he's also not getting outs like Sugano is. But what Sugano did was another good start, but again, in a very, very different way. Tomoyuki Sugano on Monday against the Yankees, 5 scoreless innings, 5 hits, 8 strikeouts to just 1 walk, 95 pitches, and a 3.00 ERA for Sugano through his first 6 big league starts. And how did he do it? Well, the splitter was absolutely dancing. I mean, to have 9 Ks in your first 5 starts and then strike out 8 in just 5 innings in one single start the next time out, that's kind of looking at a different pitcher. And he dominated, but was more truly dominant. Now, his last 2 starts were 7 innings. This one only went 5 because to get those strikeouts, he threw 95 pitches in 5 innings. The Orioles bullpen was in a solid place. It was an okay time for Hyde to go to the pen at that point, especially with Sugano at 95. But the splitter was incredible. 9 whiffs on 12 swings against that Sugano splitter, which we knew was his best pitch when he came over from Japan this offseason. We've seen it in flashes in his first 5 starts, but nothing like what we saw on Monday. His previous high on whiffs in an entire start was 10. He had 9 on just the splitter Monday. He had 17 total whiffs on Monday night. He had not had more than 3 swings and misses on the splitter in any start this year, and then he had 9 of them. That pitch was tunneling well. It's something Sugano talked about after the game, how he has good ride on his four-seam fastball, good drop on the splitter when he throws them to the same spot. One stays on plane, the other one dives off the table. It's really hard to hit him. Even if it is a good Yankee lineup, it is really, really hard to hit. And 10 whiffs on the splitter is most by any starting pitcher this year. Nathan Eovaldi, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, and AJ Smith-Shawver have each done 10 whiffs on a splitter. Sugano's now second with the 9 he had on Monday. We knew he wasn't a strikeout pitcher. He wasn't that in Japan, and he hadn't been that at all. Again, lowest K rate in the majors among qualified starters through 5 starts. But you know what? That was a different pitcher. That was a little bit of a different pitcher, not in a bad way, but a different pitcher that we saw on Monday. And the splitter, it wasn't even his number 1 pitch. That was the other interesting thing. His splitter through 5 starts had been his most used pitch. And on Monday, that was the best we've seen the splitter look, yet it was only his number 3 pitch. He threw his sweeper more than anything else for the first time on Monday night. And that is where I was really impressed, because even though the splitter was the best pitch, he knew the sweeper was helping him against all those righties in the Yankees order. And so he mixed it well. He didn't go the full kitchen sink approach. He barely threw his cutter and his sinker. It was really a big 4-pitch mix, and then he tossed those things in there a couple of times. It's been more of an even 6-pitch mix in the first 5 starts. So again, things were different. But I think the best part about this for Sugano is it's awesome to know that he has this in him. I think if he's going to have long-term success this season with the Orioles, it's going to look more like it did in the previous 2 starts, right? He went 7 innings in each of them, gave up a few runs, didn't get a lot of strikeouts, didn't walk anybody though, was throwing strikes, getting contact. And yeah, there was some soft contact, there was some hard contact, hit right at fielders for outs, and he was just eating innings and keeping this team in games. I think long-term, that's more likely to be what success looks for him. But to know that in just his 6th major league start, he also has this against the Yankees of all teams in his back pocket is really, really helpful to the Orioles, because nobody had really shown a start like this so far this season, where they could have a dominant pitch and just go at a good lineup. And Sugano did it. And I don't think we would have thought that here on April 30th, Tomoyuki Sugano would be the Orioles' best starting pitcher. It probably says a lot about the current state of the rotation, which we'll get into. But I really liked what I saw. That was really impressive to see him do it a different way. Now, the second thing you do need to know is because Sugano struck out a lot of guys, he threw 95 pitches, he was out of there after 5 innings. So the Orioles had to go to the bullpen a little bit earlier. And Gregory Soto did almost give up the lead. Now, Keegan Aiken, Yennier Cano were both really good out of the pen, and Soto did get the final out of the 7th inning to keep it a 4-1 game. But Soto went back out there in the 8th with the O's up 4-1. And he gave up. He still is not allowed a barrel this year, but he did allow 2 hard hit doubles in that inning, and he was struggling a bit, but Brandon Hyde stuck with him. He had some favorable matchups against lefties, and then a couple of Yankees switch hitters who were both significantly worse from the right side of the plate, so significantly worse against a lefty. Brian Baker, a righty, was pretty much warm in the Oriole bullpen at that point in the 8th inning, but Hyde played the matchups. And I know Orioles fans get really mad at Brandon Hyde when he plays the matchups, but it worked. Even with Soto struggling, he got a strikeout and a ground out to get out of the inning and strand the tying run at second, keep the Orioles in the lead 4-3, heading to the bottom of the 8th. And that took guts, because I think I would have pulled Soto in favor of Baker in that moment. Even though the matchups were good, Soto was kind of struggling. He was facing batter after batter, and Hyde stuck with his guy, and it worked out. And Soto hasn't been great. His last 6 outings, 5 innings, 9 hits, 6 runs, 3 Ks, 3 walks. His swinging strike rate is way down. But it was nice to see that in his previous 5 outings before Monday, it had been 1 strikeout in those times. So to get 2 Ks on Monday night, to not walk anyone, was nice as well. I think that could be an outing that after Soto was dominant those first couple of weeks of the year, he started to dip a little bit. just not getting as much whiff, not commanding as well. Maybe this is the one that pushes him back into the correct direction, which could definitely be a good thing for this Oriole bullpen. Third thing you need to know from Monday's win is that we saw the best Felix Bautista we have seen so far. Now, last Thursday in DC, the Orioles' previous win was good. Came in 2-1 game, bottom 9, let a base runner get to third, but got the save to avoid the sweep and get the Orioles W. He was certainly good. That's a 1-run save. But it was a 1-run game, 4-3 in the ninth. He's facing the top of that Yankee order. Grisham, Judge, Bellinger. They are swinging it well right now. Not an easy part to get through. And he made it look a little easy. 1, 2, 3 inning. That looked like 2023 Felix, except for the velocity, which was 97, 98. That's pretty much what he's sitting at now, instead of his usual, 99 to 101 that we saw him 2 years ago as the Oriole closer. That's the one thing that has not come all the way back, is that fastball velocity. But even at 97 miles an hour, it is such an interesting pitch. The very over-the-top angle. It's a sinker with ride. It's kind of a one-of-a-kind pitch. Even at 97 instead of 100, it is still a very, very good fastball. And the splitter is as good, if not better, than what we saw 2 years ago. That splitter has come all the way back. He's regained the command. It's got a 63% swing and miss rate this year. It was at 60% in 2023. It's got the same velocity, exactly the same average velocity, 88.6 miles an hour on the splitter, but he was throwing it even harder. He was up at 91 with the splitter on Monday night, and the splitter he threw to strike out Aaron Judge, that thing looked like a screwball. It ran down and in on Judge's hands. That had more horizontal arm side movement than I've seen from any splitter in Felix Bautista's career. I mean, maybe he's adding stuff to get Aaron Judge out. That was so impressive. Like, this season's been rough, but to have Bautista back and looking as good as he has over the past couple of outings, if the Orioles could just get themselves a lead in the ninth inning, they're in good shape right now. Unfortunately, they can't really do that. But they did do enough to do it on Monday. And the fourth thing you need to know from that Monday win is that the Orioles had only one hit with a runner in scoring position, but it was a big one. The O's went 1 for 7 with runners in scoring position on Monday, and that kept the total issues going. In the last 8 games, ending with the win on Monday, the Orioles were 7 for 67. 7 for 67. That is a 104 batting average with runners in scoring position. Now, if the hits that you're getting, the very few, leave the yard, all can sometimes be forgiven. And that is what happened on Monday night, because after back-to-back walks to Gunnar and Adley to open the third by Yankee starter Will Warren, Ryan O'Hearn delivered the big swing. A 3-run homer into the flag court on a hanging breaking ball to put the Orioles up 4-0. He got caught on a hot mic in the dugout after using the homer hose after the big homer. And it was a cool moment for him, cool moment for the Orioles. And O'Hearn has been incredible this year. Coming into play on Tuesday, a 171 WRC plus. He's hitting 300. He's got a minuscule 13% strikeout rate. And Cedric Mullins is kind of carrying the Orioles offensively right now. And listen, he had another 2 hits on Monday and robbed Paul Goldschmidt of what was probably going to be a home run on the final pitch Sugano threw in the 5th inning. That was awesome as well. Mullins has been incredible. But don't forget Ryan O'Hearn. He is doing it too. And the 1B to Mullins 1A offensively for the Orioles has been O'Hearn, who's had some huge swings for this team and had another one in a big spot. Again, it was the only runner in scoring position hit, but O'Hearn got it done, and the Orioles were able to hold on to that thing. And the fifth and final thing you need to know from the Orioles' 4-3 win over the Yankees on Monday night is that Ramon Laureano had himself a nice day as well. 2 doubles and an RBI. His RBI double in the second opened the scoring and gave the Orioles a 1-0 lead. Ball was a little misplayed by Trent Grisham in center field, but the O's will take that break. They haven't gotten many of them recently, but Laureano's swinging a better bat, and honestly, he's going to be playing a little bit more. Like, he was in the lineup Monday. He was in the lineup Tuesday. Tyler O'Neill went on the injured list over the weekend. Of course, we know Colton Cowser is still out with an injury. Heston Kjerstad is really struggling right now, which is tough to watch. Kjerstad's got a 62 WRC plus. He's got 23 Ks to 1 walk in 75 plate appearances entering Tuesday. And Laureano's been 7% better than league average with the bat. And hopefully for now, at least until O'Neill comes back, Laureano can show off that arm in the outfield and kind of hold the line offensively. And that was a nice night for him on Monday. But that is where the good vibes completely stopped because the Orioles were entering Tuesday. They could win a series. They had a new starting pitcher has entered the villa. It went about as poorly as it could. It's still going on as I record right now, but we're going to talk about the disaster that was Kyle Gibson's season debut. That's coming up next. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it is easy to lose track. Well, that's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. And Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. And I think the best thing about Monarch Money is the all-in-one convenience. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. So the O's got a big win over the Yankees on Monday, snapped a 3-game losing streak. It was the first game against the Yanks this year. Pretty complete game. Yeah, you'd like a little bit more than 4 runs for the offense, but you will absolutely take it, I would think, at this point. You're thinking, all right, they got a win. They looked good. They pitched well. They got a clutch swing. Bautista was awesome. And now a little bit of reinforcements emerging because Kyle Gibson was set to make his 2025 debut on the mound, getting the start for the Orioles on Tuesday. Gibson, who the Orioles signed to about a 1-year, $5 million deal shortly before spring training ended, just because, hey, they felt like they would need some more pitching depth. They had already suffered the injuries to Grayson Rodriguez and Trevor Rogers and Chase McDermott. They know Gibson. He provided some good things for this team when he ate 192 innings for the O's back in 2023. They knew he wouldn't be ready for opening day, but they said, look, we're going to need this depth at some point. And I'll give Mike Elias credit. He was right. They absolutely needed the depth the moment Kyle Gibson was ready. He made 3 minor league rehab starts through another bullpen and then was activated on Tuesday with Cade Stroud optioned back down to AAA to make the start on Tuesday night. It was like, you know what? This rotation's been bad, but hey, we're not thinking Kyle Gibson's going to be the savior. I truly don't think that anyone thought Kyle Gibson was going to be the savior. However, I think we looked at what Gibson did in 2023, and honestly, ERA-wise, he was better last year with the St. Louis Cardinals, and it was like, I know he's a 37-year-old pitcher. I know he didn't get a regular spring training. I understand all of that. However, I also know how bad this Orioles rotation has been, and I also know that it really can't get worse, or at least we thought we knew that, didn't we? And then it got worse because you could make an incredibly strong argument that what Kyle Gibson did on Tuesday night was the worst start of his major league career. He goes out there, takes the ball, and on the second pitch of the game, Trent Grisham clobbers a home run onto Utah Street. It's 1-0. Very next pitch, Aaron Judge into the flag court. It's 2-0. Couple pitches later, Cody Bellinger into the right field seats. It's 3-0. Back-to-back home runs to start the game, to start the season for Kyle Gibson. I wasn't expecting him to go 7 scoreless innings. I just thought we'll get the usual Kyle Gibson. 6 innings, 3 or 4 runs, eat some innings, keep the Orioles in the game, stabilize this rotation a little bit on the back end. Instead, it was a complete disaster. He got a ground out. That was fantastic to see him get a ground out. How bad did Paul Goldschmidt have to feel after 3 straight homers to ground out? But don't worry. Don't worry. There was more bad stuff happening after that because, actually I misspoke. Ben Rice hit the 3rd homer. Then it was Cody Bellinger later in the inning. At the end of the inning, Kyle Gibson had allowed 6 extra base hits and 5 runs before he finally got that 3rd out mercilessly. 4 homers to the first 5 batters of his season. Can't really get much worse than that. It really cannot. And I mean, remember Dylan Bundy? You may have blocked this start out of your mind, but May 8th, 2018, against the Royals, Dylan Bundy takes the mound, gives up 7 earned runs on 5 hits, 4 homers, 2 walks, and does not record an out before he is pulled from the game in the first inning in favor of, here's a name drop, Mike Wright Jr. The Orioles feel a little bit like 2018 right now. Like that's the feeling I'm getting when I'm watching some of these games. It's been a disaster. And listen, Gibson signed late in the spring. He made only 3 minor league build-up starts. Maybe he wasn't ready. Maybe he wasn't fully built up. That's totally possible. But doesn't that say a lot about the state of the Orioles rotation, that they may have had to rush 37-year-old Kyle Gibson to the mound just to save them? That's how bad it has truly gotten. And I don't think he'll be this bad. I don't think he'll be, what was the final line? 3 2/3, 9 runs, 11 hits, 2 Ks, 2 walks, 5 homers bad. Because, oh yeah, he also gave up another solo shot to Ben Rice again in the second inning. And then a 0 in the third, and then 3 more in the fourth before he was pulled from the game. 9 earned runs ties a career high for Gibson, who also allowed 9 earned runs with the Orioles in Seattle back on August 11th of 2023, but at least he ate 5 1/3 innings that day, not 3 2/3. It's just, legitimately was probably the worst start of his career on Tuesday night. And so it made me just want to take a quick, maybe not that quick, but a look at the Orioles' current like where does this rotation stand at this point after that absolute disaster? And again, I don't think Kyle Gibson will be this bad. He's been useful for a while. But then again, Charlie Morton had been incredibly useful for a while. And the moment he joined the O's this year, he was toast. Now, if Kyle Gibson gets another start, I'll guarantee you, I'll put it out there right now. He's going to give up less than 9 earned runs. I feel pretty confident saying that. But he could be done too. And where do the Orioles go then? Like, the injuries suck. The O's didn't think that 5 starters from their top 11 starters would already be on the injured list. Zach Eflin, Grayson Rodriguez, Trevor Rogers, Chase McDermott, now Cody Poteet as well. Not to mention Kyle Bradish and Tyler Wells still out. But I mean, you look at the rotation, you feel good about Sugano. Zach Eflin threw a bullpen on Tuesday. That's good. Getting closer. Trevor Rogers and Chase McDermott have each thrown a rehab start in Double-A. That's good. Povich has been okay. Kramer's been bad with a 7.04 ERA, but he's always bad in April, and the calendar is about to be May tomorrow. Brandon Young was okay in 2 starts, but he's not eligible to come back to the bigs until May 11th because of the optioning rules. Charlie Morton's been unusable at this point, a 10.36 ERA in 6 starts. But then he pitched out of the bullpen on Tuesday. Like, he's pitching in the game right now as I'm recording. This probably would have been his throw day, his side session day, but they used an opener for him on Saturday. He threw 80 pitches Saturday, Sunday, Monday off, and he comes out of the bullpen Tuesday. He's already thrown 30 pitches, and he's still out there. I think he might be coming out of the game right now, potentially. But that's where they're at. They're at the point where Charlie Morton with his 10 ERA is throwing out of the bullpen on his side session day because that's how bad it's gotten. Now, Morton could be skipped this weekend. They could go Kramer, Sugano, Gibson against the Royals, all on regular rest. But besides the Sugano part, is that much better if Morton needs to be skipped because he threw 30 pitches in the game here on Tuesday? Like, I don't know where they go. And let's say the Orioles were only playing in the 1-year deal boat. Okay, there's a lot bigger conversation about not being willing to spend on pitching, obviously. And also part of the conversation, it's not all on the O's. This is terrible injury luck they've had for the 2nd straight year. Like, they built starting pitching depth. Was it great depth? That can be debated, but they had depth, and all that depth got wiped out by injury, and it's not even May yet. That is awful luck that plays a gigantic part in this. But the other gigantic part in this is they weren't willing to spend on pitching. So let's live in a world where they're only willing to play in the 1-year deal boat. Okay, fine. Sugano's been good. Great signing so far. Morton's been bad. So they went 1 for 2 with the 1-year deals to the starters this offseason. 17 starting pitchers signed a 1-year deal and have made at least 1 start in the majors so far this season from this last offseason. Charlie Morton and Kyle Gibson have been the 2 worst ERA-wise. Now, I know Gibson's made 1 start, but a 22.09 ERA doesn't look great, and Morton's ERA is not good either. By the way, he's still pitching. He is still pitching in the game. The bases are loaded with 2 outs in the 7th inning. He has thrown 34 pitches, and he is still in there. He's probably not going to start at this point this weekend. I guess we'll see, but they've been the 2 worst. And some of the guys I liked have also been bad. I'm going to throw up here on the screen if you're watching. Well, I might actually throw up on the screen if I watch any more of this Orioles game, but I'm going to throw onto the screen here. If you're watching on the Locked On Orioles YouTube channel, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. This is the list of the 16 non-Kyle Gibson pitchers who signed a one-year deal this offseason and made at least one start this year, sorted by ERA so far in the 2025 season, entering play on Tuesday. And there's some guys on here who I wanted the O's to sign who have not been good. Mike Soroka's got a 7 ERA and 1 bad start, and he's on the IL. Max Scherzer's hurt. Justin Verlander's got a 5 ERA and 6 starts with the Giants. But there's also guys on here who I was talking about, hey, the Orioles should take a flyer on this guy on a one-year deal to have depth. Andrew Heaney's been great. A 1.72 ERA and 5 starts with the Pirates. I have been all over Andrew Heaney for years now. And the Orioles, I mean, if he's signing a one-year, $5 million deal with the Pirates, he absolutely would have signed a one-year deal, I think, with the Orioles. And the O's have shown, yeah, maybe they're not going to spend on the long contracts, but they're willing to spend whatever on a one-year deal to get a player. So if they wanted Heaney, they could have offered him easily $15 million, and it would have been fine, and he would have come to Baltimore. Jose Quintana's got a 1.14 ERA with the Milwaukee Brewers. He signed super late in the offseason. Griffin Canning, I was like, Griffin Canning, he's got good stuff. The Angels probably ruined him. If he's not on the Angels, he might be good. Well, the Mets signed him to a one-year deal, and oh, would you look at that, a 2.61 ERA and 6 starts. Walker Buehler even, like he hasn't been great, but the Orioles would love to have a starter with a 4.28 ERA and 33 2/3 innings in their rotation right now. Like they missed even on the one-year deals, even the guys they were willing to spend on. And again, credit for Sugano. That's gone great so far. His FIP is much higher than his ERA, and you worry that could get out of hand at some point, and I didn't think Charlie Morton would be this bad. I thought he'd be like a 4.45 ERA guy like he's been for the last couple of years and eat some innings. He's absolutely not doing that. So they even whiffed on that. And again, the injuries are a huge part of this. But it's April 30th. The Orioles are 7 games under 500. They're not out of it. It's not even May. They still have plenty of time to make this up. But it's like, how do you even survive with this rotation right now? It feels like you have Morton and Gibson presumably in the rotation right now. It feels like 2 automatic losses. I know it's a little unfair to Gibson. It's been 1 start. Maybe he was rushed back. But I've only seen the 1 start from Tuesday, and it feels like 2 automatic losses. How do you recover from that when, honestly, I'm going to give Dean Kramer a little slack. He's always been bad in April, and it's going to be May. But he feels like a 3rd automatic loss. When you got 2 starters out there that you feel like give you a chance to win in your rotation, and one of them has a 5 ERA in Cade Povich, that's not a great spot to be at. And there's really no one else to turn to in AAA. I would be fine giving Brandon Young some more starts, but again, he can't come up until the 11th. Thaddeus Ward starting with a 6+ ERA in AAA. Raul Alcantara, 10 ERA and 5 starts. I mean, Kyle Brinovich with a 4.5 ERA and 26 Ks in 21 innings, and Cameron Weston, who's flashed some good stuff. Those seem to be a couple of right-handers who would be the best next options to come up from AAA Norfolk. And I don't think the Orioles feel like they're ready to be in the big leagues, but it's also like, could they be any worse than what the O's are seeing right now? I mean, Roansy Contreras is still down there too. Maybe he could be an option. You got him to stick around. And at this point, you hope that, you can bring back Brandon Young May 11th, or maybe there's another pitching injury and you can bring him back sooner. And then maybe by May 11th, Zach Eflin's ready. Young and Eflin replace Morton and Gibson. And at least, I don't know, you're in a better spot, but that's 2 more starts potentially for Morton and Gibson East, at least 1 more start for each of them. And again, they're going to give Gibson a little bit more of a test than 1 start to make their final call here. But I don't know what to do. I really do not know what to do. The Orioles are not going to get no hitter, perfect game to shut out. They got a Emmanuel Rivera walk and a Mateo double and a RBI ground out and whatnot in the 6th. But like, I don't know. I don't know. I just hope it gets better. But man, it is bleak in that rotation right now. But a lot of roster moves also happened when I was gone. It's not just pitchers that are injured. It's other guys too. It's position players. We'll talk about that to finish off the show coming up next. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by Wonderful Pistachios. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1-ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Now, I am a fan of the classic variety. I think it's the Maryland in me, liking to pick crabs. I like to open the shells to get that delicious pistachio, but they've got an amazing no-shells variety too. Perfect grab-and-go snack with amazing flavors as well. So get snackin' and get crackin' with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. So there were a lot of roster moves while I was out. Thank you for your patience, but we are back now. And I want to run through all of them before we finish off today's episode. Let's start with Tyler O'Neill. It took about a month, but Tyler O'Neill, who's been on the injured list now 15 times in his career, was placed on the IL for the first time with the Orioles. He's on the injured list with neck inflammation. He had missed multiple games last week with neck issues. It is retroactive to April 24th. So O'Neill is actually eligible to be activated from the IL this Sunday, May 4th. Brandon Hyde said about the injury, he just felt like he needed a little bit of rest on it, not something super serious, hopes that it'll just be the minimum 10 days and he's back. So O'Neill could be back on Sunday with a short absence, but we know how many injuries he's had in his career, and that continues. He had a really hot start to the year and hasn't been great since. Has a 92 WRC plus. He's running a 28%, pretty high K rate. And the big issue with O'Neill, he was the second best hitter in baseball last year behind Aaron Judge against left-handed pitching. That's what the O's brought him in here to do, mash lefties. He's 2 for 21 with 11 strikeouts against left-handed pitchers this year. And overall, he was 1 for 20 with 11 Ks in his last 5 games before hitting the IL. Now, some of that was the neck was bothering him, but hopefully it was just a neck issue the whole time, and he can get rest, come back, and get back to the hitter he was the first week and change of this season. Dylan Carlson was recalled to take his spot from AAA. Carlson started Sunday because the O's had all the injury issues. He'll be mostly a defensive replacement for Heston Kjerstad late in games. He did start on Tuesday against the left-hander. He's been much better against left-handed pitching in his career. And he also has been great in AAA, like a 131 WRC plus and 79 plate appearances in Norfolk. But with O'Neill out, it really just means we're going to see more Heston Kjerstad. Ramon Laureano, as I talked about, is going to start a lot more. And we'll see a little bit of Dylan Carlson kind of piecing it together for the rest of this week. Cade Stroud was briefly called up from AAA Norfolk, 27-year-old right-hander who the Orioles took in the 12th round of Mike Elias's first draft in 2019. Great stuff. Orioles added him to the 40-man roster this offseason to protect him from the Rule 5 draft. And it had been an interesting season so far as a reliever for Stroud in AAA. 10 innings, 18 strikeouts. You love that. 4 walks. You love that as well. But also 14 hits and 9 earned runs. That's an 8.10 ERA. But it goes with a 2.35 FIP. He's got almost a 6-run difference between his ERA and FIP, a 481 BABIP that he's running. All those numbers mean he's getting some of the worst luck you've ever seen. The stuff looked good, heavy cutter approach with a sweeper and a fastball. Unfortunately for Stroud, he just came up to give the Orioles an extra bullpen arm for Monday. They didn't need it, and he was optioned back to AAA on Tuesday to make room for Kyle Gibson on the roster. So Stroud was on the big league roster for a day, was not able to yet make his major league debut, but I'm confident Stroud will pitch for the Orioles and make that debut at some point here in 2025. Now, to make room for Stroud, left-handed pitcher Grant Wolfram was optioned to AAA on Monday. Wolfram is the left-handed reliever who came over from the Brewers in the trade for Daz Cameron, kind of the minor deal the Orioles made a couple of weeks ago. He came onto the roster on Saturday for the doubleheader. It was his MLB debut, had a bunch of family in the stands, and he pitched twice in Detroit. Pitched once on Saturday, once on Sunday. Didn't go great, but it was a left-handed arm for the Orioles to have out there. They gave him a shot, made his major league debut, and then the Orioles needed a fresh arm because he pitched back-to-back days, so he went down and Stroud came up. Now, we also had some other injury news from Monday. Jordan Westburg was placed on the 10-day injured list with a strained hamstring. Brandon Hyde said he hopes it won't be much more than the minimum 10 days. He's been banged up since the Toronto series, even further back than that. Remember, he had that back issue from sleeping on the bad mattress in spring training. Then he had some sort of upper body injury, then a lower body injury. He's been bad this year. He had an 0 for 30 at one point. He'd been hitting a little bit better the last couple of days, but you could tell. I mean, the Orioles were hinting at it a little bit. Something has been physically wrong with Jordan Westburg. John Mioli talked about how he was just kind of sluggish in the clubhouse. Like, he had already DH'd 6 times this year, not playing the field. That's generally a guy who's a good defender like Westburg DHing that much. It means something's bothering him, not enough to IL him, not enough where he can't hit, but something's bothering him where he can't really play the field that well. He DH'd Jordan Westburg only once all of last year. That was on opening day of 2024. That was the last time he had DH, and he'd done it 6 times this year in the Orioles' first 28 games. Clearly something was wrong. He apparently tweaked it even further on Sunday with the hamstring, so he finally goes on the IL. Seemed like he needed to go on it for a while. Hopefully a couple of weeks of rest gets him back to the all-star Jordan Westburg we saw last year and that the Orioles desperately need. Now, Emmanuel Rivera was called up to replace him. We know Rivera, who came over to the Orioles on waivers last August when the O's had so many injuries and actually produced really well. A 166 WRC plus in 73 plate appearances with the O's for Rivera last year, even made the postseason roster for the Orioles. Now, the O's did tender him a contract for $1 million, but they did outright him off the roster this offseason. He did accept his assignment to AAA, didn't make the team out of spring, started the season on the AAA injured list with a shoulder issue, got healthy, was hitting 308 in 73 AAA plate appearances, and got the call. Now, with Westburg out for a bit, Ramon Arias most likely takes over full-time at third base with Gunnar Henderson at short and Jackson Holliday at second. They'll mix in Jorge Mateo against some lefties. He started Tuesday, and they'll mix in Emmanuel Rivera like he started at first base on Tuesday against a lefty, and he could start against one or two lefties that they see before Westburg is ready. Rivera could also give Ryan Mountcastle a day off. He DH'd on Tuesday, but he has been terrible so far this season. So Rivera could play some first and third base, really good defender. But the big question is, why no Kobe Mayo? After a rough start to the year, the first week or so, he's been red hot lately in AAA Norfolk, already on the 40-man roster. I would think the reason for Rivera over Mayo is that the O's think this is going to be a short-term absence, a couple of weeks without Westburg. They're going to mostly play Arias because Arias has been swinging it well, so they're going to mostly have Arias, Henderson, and Holliday in that infield. And I guess their thought is, hey, the guy we call up is going to start maybe a handful of times, 2-3 times at most. We'd rather that just be Rivera and then send him back down than have Mayo come up just to mostly sit on the bench. That seems to be the reasoning. You can argue back and forth whether you agree with that or not, whether he deserves a chance, even if it's small, whether he should fully take over for Ryan Mountcastle right now. That's how bad Mountcastle has been, but that's most likely the reasoning for it being Rivera and not Mayo. Gary Sanchez also placed on the 10-day injured list. It's like it never ends. There's 13 players on the Orioles IL right now. He's got right wrist inflammation, said he's been feeling it when he's swinging the last couple of weeks. He's been fine defensively, but really bad at the plate. 3 for 35. All 3 hits are singles with 12 strikeouts. That's been Gary Sanchez so far. Brandon Hyde called a stress reaction in his wrist. It's kind of TBD right now on how much time he's going to miss. Now, Rock Kabako at Masson did float the idea of the Orioles actually bringing back James McCann if Gary Sanchez is out for more than a couple of weeks. McCann signed a minor league deal with the Braves. He's been hitting pretty well in AAA, but presumably has a May 1st opt-out on that minor league deal. So if the Braves don't call him up by Thursday, he can become a free agent. I would be totally fine with the Orioles just signing James McCann to a one-year deal, having him be the backup catcher till Sanchez is ready and get that leadership back in the Orioles clubhouse. But for now, Maverick Handley was called up to replace Sanchez and be the Orioles backup catcher behind Rutschman. If you don't know Handley, 27-year-old right-handed hitting catcher who was the Orioles' 6th-round pick out of Stanford back in 2019, was the Pac-12 co-defensive player of the year that year with Adley Rutschman. Been a great defender his whole career who has really struggled with the bat. But in 60 AAA plate appearances this year, hitting 346, 443 on base, 558 slugging. That's a 173 WRC plus. Maybe the bat finally breaking out a little bit for Handley at 27. He appeared in the game on Tuesday, struck out in his first major league plate appearance, came into the game defensively behind the plate in the 6th inning because, well, why leave Adley Rutschman out there? When you're down 12-0 in the 5th, might as well get him off his knees and get Maverick Handley in there. Cool to see him catch and get up there. And then hopefully by the time I'm done recording, he'll have maybe his first major league base hit. That would certainly be something cool to see as well. But he spends his time with the team a lot on the taxi squad anyway. You probably wouldn't need to start him until Sunday with the night games and the off day Thursday. So the Orioles could even have James McCann by Thursday. They could call up Chadwick Tromp, who they signed to a minor league deal, who's been in the big leagues with the Braves as a backup for the last couple of years. He's in AAA, but Handley was the immediate move because he was kind of already there on the O's taxi squad. So we'll see if he sticks around in that backup role or if the Orioles go elsewhere. I wouldn't mind McCann if he does opt out. And the Orioles did need to make some move on the 40-man roster because they had to add both Rivera and Handley to the 40-man to get them to the big leagues. So remember, if you are put on the 60-day injured list, you're removed from the 40-man roster. The Orioles placed both Colton Cowser and Grayson Rodriguez, moved them from the 10-day and the 15-day to the 60-day injured list. Now, those are just procedural moves. They do not impact really the timeline on Cowser and Rodriguez's return because They weren't returning for 60 days from the moment they were hurt anyway. It's not 60 days from now. It's 60 days from when they went on the IL. Grayson did it to open the season. Cowser did it after 4 games back in March. Basically makes them both eligible at the end of May. Cowser's timeline to return is around June 1st, so that doesn't change anything. And Rodriguez, with the latest setback with the lat issue, he was never going to be ready by June 1st anyway, so it really doesn't change the timetable on either of them, just opens up 40-man spots for the Orioles to fill. And they also filled a spot by claiming left-handed reliever Walter Pennington off waivers from the Rangers, but we'll get more on him on tomorrow's episode. But as I wrap up here, I'm done the episode. It was kind of a long episode. It was a 40-minute episode, and the Orioles are still down 13-2 in the 8th inning. Gunnar Henderson hit a home run. That was nice. Charlie Morton gave them 2 1/3 innings of no earned runs out of the bullpen on maybe his side session day where he threw 48 pitches. So he was going to be probably scheduled to start Friday night against Kansas City. We'll see if that happens. If not, it'll be most likely Dean Kramer still on regular rest. So we'll certainly see about that one. We'll have those updates on tomorrow's episode. But yeah, it's 13-2. Let's just pretend like that was the final score. The Orioles are 11-18, and yeah, it's not fun to watch them play baseball right now. But hopefully that changes tonight, which a game that is still a rubber match. Even though the Orioles played this poorly, they won the first game. They could still win a series over the Yankees and feel pretty good about it. Carlos Carrasco's on the mound. 38-year-old Carlos Carrasco with a 5.64 ERA for the Yankees. Orioles offense, the time to wake up is now. Cade Povich goes for the Orioles, coming off, honestly, a really good start against the Nats last week. 6 2/3 innings of 1-run ball. If he can do that, the O's could get to Carrasco. They could win a series over the Yankees, and tomorrow's show has a completely different tone. Hopefully that's the case when I'm back tomorrow. Until then, I'm Connor Newcomb, and this has been the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.